everyone. Welcome to episode 85 of Formidable Opponents, a show that pits three people who have known each other virtually their entire lives in a series of conversations as we argue what is best in a variety of fun, engaging, and critical pop culture topics we all debate about. I'm Randall, and with me as always, Bob and Joseph, and this week's topic is Best 80s Metal Song. Headbangers rejoice, we have you covered today. If you ever wore a band patch on your denim jacket and had a cholo in school detention ask you, hey, are you a rocker? This episode is for you. Heavy metal has a rich history steeped in blues, psychedelic, and acid rock. Many have written the genre off as loud noise. Critics condemned many of the early acts, but that was not surprising, seeing as that most critics were old and out of touch. Think about many of the bands that have been influential mainstays. Metallica, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden all occupy not only a huge space in rock and metal history, but in its present and its future as well. Bands will forever chase ghosts, and maybe because the 70s and 80s were just a more metal time. We're here to speak about the latter decade, but good metal is what you discover when you're young, and for us it was the 80s. An era where we had milk with hamburgers during high school lunch at 11:30, dissected a fetal pig in biology at 1, and watched the saucy version of Romeo and Juliet at 2 p.m. in English class. And we went home to our VHS recording of Headbangers Ball. A common thread that you'll find with most of these groups is rebellion and rejection. A huge common thing is that the collective intelligence to get people moving, thinking and at times angry, always wanting louder, better. Yeah, that's metal. We have evolved, but metal since its inception has been at the forefront, debunking the closed-minded, giving the collective finger to elitism. Metal is a tribe, a collective. It's a thought and it's a purpose. This week, we dissect those purposes from the modern conventions to the historic loud legacy of an underdog genre, a decade where many say modern metal was born. This week, Formidable Opponents debates and discusses Best Metal Song. As always, I'm joined by two guys who thought Judas Priest breaking the law meant not rewinding their VHS copy of The Land Before Time before they returned it to Blockbuster. Bob and Joseph, how are you guys doing?
Nobody really returned movies.
You said that. Yeah, that whole opening should have. This is metal, Randy. Yeah. This is metal. Like, you should have talked a little bit louder. Get a little grunt in your voice.
We gotta. Yeah. And another bone to pick.
Get your inner fucking. What's his name?
Sandman?
No,
Mr. Sandman.
Jesus Christ! This is not gonna be
it's
good.
Judas Priest, not Jesus Christ.
Get your Rob Halford, exactly. Get your inner Rob Halford going. I'm sorry, I interrupted Bob.
No, I was gonna agree. We made a post, or Rand made a post on our Instagram page today, and he called "Get ready for a fun and lively discussion tonight." And there was some metalheads like,
"Fuck that!"
Fun and lively. Not listening to these jerk offs.
I actually just saw that, and I was like, good. I like to swipe it through the bands. Yeah. Great. Fun Motley fucking crew. What the fuck? Everything was good up until that.
We're talking early 80s too.
I don't know. There's too much lip gloss going on.
Welcome to a delightful discussion on heavy metal.
A delicacy to your ears.
So guys, how are you guys doing? It's been a couple of weeks. How's everybody doing?
It's been a while.
You know what? This is a topic and a subject and a genre that I really enjoy. I'm glad we're finally getting started with something like this. Hopefully we're going to continue it and make it a decade thing like we've done with some other topics. I feel like this is a good start. I wanted to start with the 70s, but I do realize that might be a different discussion, and we'll probably talk about that another time, because the 70s, I don't look at 70s like the 70s bands that we love as far as rock and hard rock. I can't call them metal.
Yeah.
They influenced a lot of the great bands that I like today and bands in the 80s like that we're going to talk about, but I can't really call them metal. So I just appreciate the start and where it gets its thing. But I'm really, I think this, like I said, is a great way to start. We'll start off light before we get into the 90s and the 2000s, and then that's where I'm going to scare everybody.
So I was my wife.
Like how you whispered that.
My wife had asked me, what's y'all's topic this week? And I said, oh, best 80s metal song. And she kind of looked at me like, yeah, that's one I'm going to skip, you know? I said, hey, if Sharon stood by Ozzy during Bark at the Moon, you're going to listen to this episode, all right? So, you know, and I put a lot of hashtags on that Instagram post. So, Joseph, you might find a cousin or a date or something. So,
we're going to get some people.
Wait.
And they expect it to be fun and lively, motherfucker. Fun and lively in their discussions. So you answer back their DMs very nice.
Anyway, let's get this going now.
Let's get it going. Let's go opening questions, guys. What made the 80s such a unique and groundbreaking era for metal? We'll start with you guys.
Oh, that's simple. It's the music videos, man. I think music videos help metal go
a visualization
sort of mainstream, man. You know, they at least allowed the metal music to reach more people, you know, staying up watching MTV. I think the metal scene was kind of like, I don't know, you would say like more like dive bar, kind of smaller, that kind of thing. But
yeah, small club shit.
Yeah, small club stuff. But with the invention of MTV and music videos, I think it took it mainstream. And I think that's why you see, I think the 80s are a great decade to talk about metal music because of MTV and the music video.
70s didn't have a metal scene. I love to, like I said, look back at the influences like that Black Sabbath had on some of my favorite bands. But I think the 80s is where we really got our start as far as where we were going to go, where metal started to build. And of course, we'll talk about it later, you know, the different types, things that were called metal that weren't supposed to be called metal. I really think it's important. It's definitely important because like I said, I feel this is where it gets kicked off, and where, you know, even some of the shit that you
say Poison, swear to God.
See, that album cover though, that Poison album cover, I don't remember which one it is, but I was like, when the first time I saw it, I was like, this is a Poison album cover. I thought this was a girl band.
Prettiest man I ever saw.
Look at what the cat dragged in. I think I'm not.
Yeah,
sure.
that's it. Yeah, it's that one. Yeah, that's that one.
You know, and I'm with both you guys. I had MTV right here. It gave it a visual. It was the intersect to the mainstream. That's what MTV did. It gave heavy metal a story. We're going to talk a lot about Headbangers Ball, which kicked off in 1987. It was first hosted by Adam Curry, who was a pop DJ, and they got rid of him and they replaced him with Ricky Rackman. And at its apex, the show averaged 1.3 million views per week. Joseph, Bob, your thoughts on Ricky Rackman and the show altogether?
I think he was clearly the better choice for the show. Ricky Rackman, I remember watching those. He was doing his job because a lot of what was being dominated, a lot of the stuff that maybe was on MTV, on radio, was the quote unquote hair metal. You know, I remember seeing interviews with him on that show, and he dressed the part for the people that he was interviewing. But he did have I remember him at least having a great love of all things metal, and it shows as that show progressed, because as the times changed, he started to, I guess, but that's for TV. He had to change how he did the show, how he talked in the show, how he acted, and, you know, who he was interviewing. So this show wouldn't have succeeded without him, and it wouldn't have lasted as long as it did without him. And I appreciate it very much because he actually introduced me to some great bands.
Excellent. I mean, and Ricky Rackman, I know that he had his critics, but it's like you said, Joseph, and I'm sure you agree too, Bob, that he did his homework. He knew the bands. He looked like he had a good rapport. He looked like he was friends with the bands. And that actually helped MTV, I think, build a legitimate bridge to heavy metal fans, even though the show was on, once a week on a Saturday, like
late at night,
midnight to like 3 a.m. I mean, people were watching. If they weren't watching live, they were recording and watching it the following week. Okay, guys, compared to the 70s, 90s, and 2000s metal, I mean, the more recent decades of metal, where does this decade rank, in your opinion?
As much as I just, said, like, I appreciate where it gets its start, I think it's at the bottom because I think it's at the bottom because, I mean, okay. My only reason for saying that is because the great metal bands that I love, the ones we're probably going to talk about, the ones that's from, that have songs that we probably selected, were so overshadowed by the look and the scene of LA metal that I absolutely despise. So
I'll get to that.
I mean, I think it's, to me, because of that, I think it's at the bottom. I appreciate it. Like I said, it got a lot of what I like today got its start or got its influence from these bands, the ones we're going to talk about. So, but I'm really into, because the '90s were a little bit heavier. We'll talk about that another time. But '90s heavy metal was to me heavier and harder than '80s metal
because of MTV, and like we mentioned before. I think it's probably the most important decade for metal music, as far as I get where you're coming from, Joseph, because you don't like a lot of the quote unquote metal music, but then again, I don't consider hair metal. Yeah, if that makes any sense. I don't consider
very small subset of that era, though.
Yeah, I don't consider bands like
but it had a dominant
Crew and Cinderella and Rat, and they're hard rock bands, or they're rock bands of the '80s. I don't consider them metal. I think metal has a certain tempo, a certain sound. And I know there's variations of it, but I think for it to be heavy metal, it can't have such a poppy tune, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of the '80s bands that they kind of get lumped in, oh well, that's just a hair metal phase, and I don't think it should be labeled as hair metal. I'm probably gonna get a lot of shit from that, but I think it's that I get that that's why they called it, because of the glitz and glam and Aquanet and all that bullshit. But I think that rock, if you call it '80s rock, that's what it was, man. I don't consider it metal.
We have a whole glam metal question at the end, so we'll talk more about that. But
throwing it out there, I mean, like '80s. I mean, it brought us thrash metal, speed metal, doom metal. Like it gave us a lot of different variations. Hair metal, of course, they want to throw that shit in, but it brought us a bunch of different variations of metal, and I think it's really important because it kind of took it mainstream. It wasn't just the shit that your cousin that always wears black, listens to in his room late at night. It was the shit that you could like jam to on MTV late at night and put in your fucking car if you. So yeah, that's my opinion.
I think compared to those other eras, I think the '80s metal is the heaviest and the best. I mean, you're looking at some of these bands: Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, and Black Sabbath were still strong coming off the '70s. Thrash metal became huge. '70s was the best decade for rock. But '80s, I think, for metal, I mean, '80s they were so prolific with the thrash. Bob, you mentioned the black metal, the death metal. '90s gave us grindcore, it gave us tech, and then of course doom metal started getting really popular. I don't want computers and chanting in my metal songs, but so the '90s weren't a very good era for me.
Just spandex.
Yeah, I mean, but who did great metal in the '90s? I mean, Pantera, Sepultura, Machine Head. I think '80s influence on metal culture. We just talked about it. Headbangers Ball. And you looked at the pop culture, Beavis and Butthead, Wayne's World, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Airheads, all these metal influences. Somebody's ESPN just updated.
Sorry.
we got to pay them a licensing fee now. Anyway, all those influences came from the '80s metal era. That's why I think '80s metal, when you think about heavy metal, I immediately go to '80s, because that's what I think of with the aesthetic, with the sound, and just the way people enjoyed and looked, and how it affected pop culture. And of course, MTV had a lot to do with it.
Yeah, and I agree with you in about 90% of what you said, but the bad thing is there is a commercial and pop element to '80s metal with a lot of the big '80s metal bands, or quote unquote '80s metal bands, that I'm just not a big fan of. Regardless of whether I like the band or not, I do like a lot of the bands. And again, it's kind of nitpicky, but I think a lot of them were just like hair rock bands of the '80s. You know what I mean? Which a lot of them were trying to do. The Poisons, the Bon Jovis, the Motley Crues, the Rat, Cinderella, all of them, they all kind of had a certain look, and they all kind of had a certain style, and it was all very commercial because they want it played on the radio. And I think metal doesn't necessarily need to be played on the fucking radio.
So when you look, and let's go ahead and jump to the whole glam metal, hair metal, which really took place from 1986 to 1991. I'll ask you guys straight up, and Bob, I think you answered this already. Is it metal?
No, I think dancing in spandex and smiling at the crowd and winking and shit, wearing a sailor hat and smiling. I don't think that's fucking metal, man. I think there's a certain tempo. I don't think that there should be Aquanet in my metal, man. I think that it should have an upbeat. It should be, if it doesn't mention, something dark, if it doesn't have a cool, it should be badass. It should be something you listen to at a biker bar, not at, a girl sweet 16 party in the '80s.
Joseph.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I don't know who. I think it was, what's the name of
Ricky
Poison?
Rocket from Poison.
Yeah,
it was like a taxi cab. He was more concerned about keeping the hat on his head than he was drumming. Go ahead, Joseph. Is it metal, Joseph?
No, it's not. It's look,
It's
is
not
it?
bad, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of that music. I just don't think it's metal.
It's not. The songs, they all sound the same. I was talking with Bob about this. There's a great. I don't know who it is, and to give them credit, I don't think I would. Not because I'm being an asshole. But
His name is Dad.
There's an awesome video on YouTube that basically breaks down every 80s. It was like how to write an 80s metal song, hair metal song, 80s hair metal song, and they all like he broke it down completely. The intro is all the same. That's every 80s hair metal song, glam metal song. It's stadium rock. What did we call that, Bob? We called it stadium rock. We called it. Yep. We discussed this and we were like, no, it's stadium rock. It's like party rock. Like, I understand it. People had a great time listening to it. They partied to it. That's cool. Cocaine. But it's not metal. Like it's not. It's its own thing, and it was wildly popular, and people loved it. It was a party thing, and they all sound the same, dude. Like all of them. We broke it down. It was like same guitar intros, same style of drumming, all the chorus of every song. The entire band is shouting, like it's all those songs. It's all of them. They all shout.
Let me ask you, because we know a lot of established bands like Def Leppard and Motley Crue and Kiss, when they stopped wearing makeup and they started to look like everybody's unmarried aunts.
Yeah,
wearing pastels.
They did what they felt they had to do. Lick it. What is it? Lick it up. That's a glam.
I want us to replay my little quote about "Lick It Up" when we talked about worst music videos.
That's a glam rock song. I mean, they were doing what they had to do.
But you look at these bands, and there's obvious bands like Enough's Enough, Britney Fox, Winger, Warrant, Firehouse, Faster Pussycat. There's a lot of bands that came and went. But what about some of these other established bands that turned to glam or turned to hair metal, like the Whitesnakes, like the Def Leppards, like the Motley Crues, like the Kiss, even Aerosmith, even Ozzy? What about these established bands that went to the glam rock metal, the glam metal route?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were always, Motley Crue, great fucking band, one of my favorite bands in the 80s, but I've never considered them metal. I've always considered them rock. Hard rock. They play a lot of catchy shit, and it's a lot of stadium shit you listen to at bars, like good time kind of shit. So I don't know. Like I know that you say that they turned to it, but that was like extremely popular. I want to say from 85 to 89, it was like huge, or maybe a little earlier, 84 to 88. I mean, that Aquanet hair metal thing was just so damn popular, man. But you can have a metal band that doesn't always play metal songs, if that makes sense. And you can have a hard rock band that doesn't always play hard rock songs. Everybody has a ballad. Every rose has its thorn, right? I agree that, Motley Crue, they have some hard songs, but I wouldn't consider those hard songs metal. And they have a wide variety and range of songs. I just think that there are a lot of different genres of rock in there, but I wouldn't consider them metal. I know it's like kind of a fine line.
The Prince of Darkness, when he started dressing like Helen Roper from Three's Company, was he still metal? Because he went into that glam phase. He was hanging around with those bands.
Yeah, because I mean, I think he created that doom metal, that dark metal with Black Sabbath in the late 60s and 70s, and he just was amazing. But him going solo and drugs had a lot to do with his sound, man. You know what I mean? People weren't doing cocaine and staying up all night and partying while listening to War Pigs. They're staying up night listening to fucking Mr. Crowley, goddammit, and Bark at the Moon. Let's get dressed up, let's party. He fucking bleached his hair, dude. So he was off in his own little fucking world there for a while. He's a metal singer singing songs that fit 80s rock and roll, and I think that's what it was.
When we talk about hair bands and glam bands, it was not a new thing. I mean, they've been around long before the 80s. Look at bands like Sweet, Mata Hoople, and New York Dolls. They were all glam bands from the 70s. So this was not a new phenomenon. There were heavy bands in the 70s that were dressing like this. It just happened to take a different tone. I think with the MTV late 80s era, a lot of people saw that as like, oh, these guys aren't metal anymore. They're just a bunch of commercial successes because, that's not rock. That's not metal.
Yeah. I think being commercial had a lot to do with it, man. I think now you couldn't just wear, the ripped black T-shirt and jeans and Converse and sing into a microphone. Now you had to you had to look the part, and I think these guys went over the top trying to look the part, so because they were on MTV and they knew females and women and all across the world were looking at them, and they wanted to show off and glitz up and look the part, so they could get more popular, get more girls, get more people to listen to their music and buy their records. So I think, like I said, MTV had a huge role in this hair metal scene in the 80s.
And you make an important point, Bob, because it was to open up the fan base. There weren't a lot of females listening to thrash metal. There weren't a lot of younger people listening to thrash metal. When I say younger, immediately being influenced, 12, 13, 14 years old. I think these bands were commercial successes because they were attracting, younger viewers, They were attracting, the female fan base. So therefore they were making money off this look. Sure. Last question, guys. Is there an 80s metal band that you felt should have had a bigger career?
This is going to sound like may come out of left field for some people, but Judas Priest. I thought Judas Priest was one of the biggest bands of the 80s, but I don't think their music could translate into 90s, because they had such an 80s rock and metal sound that I don't think their music can translate. I mean, I love Breaking the Law. Another Thing Coming, Living After Midnight is one of my favorite songs from them. Yeah. And I just don't think that their music can translate into the 90s, like a lot of bands, couldn't do, because, 90s kind of hit the alternative and grunge and that type of thing. But I hope that they would be bigger. I know it's going to sound stupid because they're a huge fucking band and, still probably selling out arenas. Yeah, selling out arenas and all that. But I wish that they had put out like great music in the 90s and like still moved on. I think they just got over, like most 80s bands, they got overthrown by grunge and alternative rock.
Everybody that I looked at, or everybody I'm gonna mention or whatnot, had pretty good careers for the time. I mean, if they wanted to have better careers, they could have gone the route of the glam rock thing. But no, I think everybody was happy with what they did. I think the thrash scene and the heavy metal scene, they stayed true to what they wanted to do, and they didn't care if they were as successful as a Motley Crue.
I think what was great about like thrash metal and like the heavy metal dudes, they didn't have an 80s sound. They had a metal sound.
Yeah, and I agree.
I think that a lot of the bands that couldn't translate into the 90s and afterwards, they made their music so 80s, which is not a bad thing, man. I mean, I love 80s music, one of my favorite decades of music, especially if you want to have a good time. But I think that the thrash metal bands and like the heavy metal bands, they didn't sound like 80s music or 80s rock. Like it just sounded like metal. So I think that's why those bands were able to thrive and continue their music into the 90s and so on, because they didn't have a particular sound of the decade, if that makes sense.
My quick answer to that, I thought Rat would have a bigger career. Round and Round was such a punch in the face. I thought he had a great voice. Can't remember the name of the lead singer. They had a great video. They had a great look. They were young. And I thought this band was going to stick around and translate into the 90s. They didn't do that. But Joseph, I want to ask your final thing about hair metal, because I know people aren't tuning in to listen to us talk about Poison. But Joseph, I could guess that video says, shredding guitar in the beginning. The singer talks about, his girlfriend or whatever. Then they do a very fan friendly chorus. Then there's a guitar solo. Then there's just drums. So it was very formulaic. I could imagine that's what the video talks about, how the chorus had to be catchy. So it was borderline pop. It wasn't, nowhere near metal.
Wait, what were you talking about?
Never mind. We'll cut that all out.
Never mind. Cut it. We'll get that shit.
What?
I want you to leave that in, and then we'll laugh, and then we'll move on. Moving on. Honorable mention.
I saw a look on his face as I was describing. I was like, wait, I think I'm going to lose about this stuff.
Like Meowski and National Senior Trip.
What video were you talking about?
I was just talking about like glam as a formula.
No, it's a formula. Like
okay. I'm sorry.
No, it's too late. We'll cut that part out.
It's too late, Joseph.
No, it's funny. Leave it in. I'm preparing I'm bringing the list up because I know we're going to get into the honorable mentions. So
all right. And speaking of which, good segue. Let's go into our honorable mentions. Joseph, go ahead and kick us off.
All right, since I fucked it up. All right, I had Crazy Train, obviously. Ozzy, to me, I got The Trooper by Iron Maiden, Elimination by Overkill, See You in Hell by Grim Reaper.
See you in hell. I love that song.
See you in hell.
My love that song. Love it. Love it. Gotta have it. Raining Blood, Slayer, Toxic Waltz, Exodus. I, of course, love Battery by Metallica. That's one of my favorite songs. Mother by Danzig.
Yes.
Am I Evil, Diamond Head, Last Caress, Misfits, and Under the Blade by Twisted Sister, which is not about sadomasochism, Tipper Gore. It's about
See no evil.
it's about it's about a dental operation.
Dental operation. You're gonna burn in hell.
You're gonna burn in hell. That was fucking awesome.
That's just about a sauna room, by the way, not about. Bob, what are your honorable mentions?
Well, I had Metallica, man, Metal Militia, Black and Seek and Destroy, Battery, right? I could just go on. Creeping Death, great shit. I did have Crazy Train. I have Dio, Holy Diver, great fucking song. Iron Maiden, of course, you got to mention the Trooper, Judas Priest, Breaking the Law. AC/DC, Hell's Bells, 1980. Got to mention AC/DC. They kind of walked that fine line between hard rock and metal, but you know what, dude? I love those guys and their riffs and Angus. Slayer, Angel of Death, Raining Blood. I love one of our best friends who's been on the show, Danny.
Angel of Death.
Yeah, dude, he is a psycho Slayer fan. Saw them, he even caught the guitar pick that they threw out. Yes. Fucking, of course, this is like when we were sophomores in high school. By our junior year, he didn't know where the fuck he left it. So
I know, right?
So Daniel,
he was so happy about that. He was like, I caught Kerry King's guitar pick.
Yeah, and I told him, I was like, dude, I have a guitar. Just give it to me. I'll hold it in my guitar. It's up, like it'll never get lost. No, I'm gonna hold it. And he lost it probably. I don't know. God damn it, Daniel. Okay, going on. What do you got, Ren?
All right, I got Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. Let me ask you guys real quick. What is your favorite crazy Ozzy Osbourne story?
Oh, I was telling Joseph about, well, this is one that I saw him in concert, this week listening to metal music and stuff in Ozzy. He was like, he was in between songs at a concert. He's like, if anybody has drugs or alcohol, please send them to me. He's like fucked up and like wired and has got cocaine eyes. If anybody out there has drugs or alcohol, please give them to me. Him biting the bat set off, taking a leak at the Alamo. We're from Texas, so that was a pretty big
snorting the ants. Yes,
snorting the ants. Drinking the pee off the ground. Did you hear that story with him and Motley Crue? Like,
yes. I think we covered most of them.
Yeah, that Tommy Lee walked into his hotel room after that and like he was smearing shit on the walls and he's like, fuck this, I'm getting out of here. Ozzy's a crazy dude, man.
Ozzy's crazy. Do you have any other crazy Ozzy stories, Joseph, that we missed?
So Zakk Wylde, his longtime guitar player for his solo tour and whatnot, told a really funny story. It's on YouTube. You can go watch it. Basically, he was having coffee with him. They were sitting quietly together having coffee, and Ozzy looked kind of a little depressed, and he said, Zach, I don't do drugs anymore. I don't smoke anymore. I don't drink anymore. And he goes, my schlong doesn't work anymore. And then Zach Wylde says that he was like, he kind of like laughed, but he also kind of felt bad for him. So he kind of put his arm around him, and then Ozzy looked at him and said, Zach, why am I alive?
Time out on that one, man. That's funny and sad. Okay,
go to YouTube and search Zakk Wylde Ozzy Osbourne stories. I think he's got like 2 or 3 videos, at least 3, where he tells Ozzy stories, and they're just hilarious, like hilarious shit.
Breaking the Law by Judas Priest. The way Rob Halford moves his shoulders, like, I mean, it's so hypnotizing.
It's a beautiful thing.
I have Mother by Danzig. You know how in baseball they let batters pick their walk-up music? This song is perfect for that, or for a true crime documentary about a heinous murder. Either one. Great song for that. Holy Diver by Ronnie James Dio. He invented the hand horns. A lot of people didn't know that. He said he got it from his Italian mom or grandmother who would put a hex on people. And
F you, Gene Simmons.
Exactly. I always feel like you should be listening to the song, riding a horse Simmons at night.
The tongue thing a little too much.
Yes, this song is just incredible. Angel of Death, Slayer. I know it's a controversial song. I won't go into that, but I often listen to music for this podcast for the research purposes, because it takes me an hour to get to work. I put this song on. I had forgotten how heavy it was. I got to work in 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Okay, because the song is heavy. A few Slayer CDs and cassettes back in my day. I had Metal Health by Quiet Riot off the Metal Health album. That was the first heavy metal album to reach #1 on the Billboard chart, so that's important. That's why I put it there. Shout Out the Devil by Motley Crue. I know we talked about Motley Crue as a glam band, as a rock band, but back in their early days, I mean, Shout At the Devil was heavy. I used to be deathly afraid of this song. My cousins used to play this song to get rid of me because I was the runt of the group. I remember these were the same cousins who made me shine their shoes because they fooled me into thinking I was auditioning for a Shoe Shine Boy for a Bruce Springsteen video. So they used to play Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil, because I used to cry and run out of the room. Bonded by Blood by Exodus. It's fast and heavy. Everybody gives a lot of reverence for early Metallica bringing in thrash metal to prominence, but Exodus was right there at the start. The song that this album comes from was delayed, so it was a huge setback for Exodus, Joseph. And Metallica took the thrash metal crown and ran with it, but Exodus was right there.
No, I mean you can. I'm kidding. You can listen to Exodus song 80. You know, there's stuff in the 80s, and it's right on par. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, I love Metallica. Who knows what would happen? Because you can listen to, like I said, any Exodus song, and if you don't know anything like about Metallica or Exodus, you can play them songs side by side and ask them like who's who. And if you don't know anything about them, you'll be like, oh, well, they're the same band. You know, they're just kind of right.
Everybody knows everything about Metallica, Joseph.
As far as
they just released their, what is it, their 8th album, 7th album?
Eighth.
8th.
10, going on like
12, 14. Sing My Battleship.
I don't know what number, but their newest one, 72 seasons.
Dude, but a big congrats to Metallica for releasing another album at their age. Still rocking hard, man. I love that about them. I was a big fan of Hardwired, and we were fortunate enough 2 days ago on Friday they released what's the name of their new album, Joseph?
72 seasons.
72 seasons. With their number one single was Lux Eterna. Lux Eterna, dude, badass, dude.
That's part of the reason where we're talking about metal. We're also celebrating another Metallica album. Joseph and Bob, you both have listened to it already, right? Give us your 10-second review.
Yeah, I told Joseph, and me and Joseph were ready for fisticuffs on Friday. It's not as hard as as it used to be.
They're 68 years old.
I know. No, they still rock out, man. There's a couple of songs that I'm a real big fan of. I'm one of those people that needs to listen to an album a few times in order to kind of like get into the songs. You know, it's hard to listen to the album at work when people are bothering you and you're trying to listen to both. But I mean, it's a great album. Hardwired to Self-Destruct was such a heavy fucking album in 2016. And like, I'm trying to compare it to that, but that one I was just over the moon about. So, you know, it's going to be hard to live up to that expectation. But it's a very good album.
Quick review, Joseph.
Bob wasn't quick. No,
thank you. That's right.
He will be after I edit it. So,
you know, we talked about, like Bob said, we talked about it. This is the fun and lively part. We talked about it real quick. I agreed with him too. I said, you know what? I'm a fan. I love Metallica. There are at least 5 to 6 songs that I really do like. I think that they went back to the thrash roots, like Bob said, with Hardwired to Self-Destruct. And I think maybe with this one, they didn't want to just do another Hardwired. So there's songs that are like fast paced, heavy, and definitely thrash. And then there's some that are mixed in a little bit with some
kind of like Load album, right?
Yeah. Some more slow tempo, but I mean, I liked it. I do. It's not as good as the previous, but I like it. And I just got the vinyl in the other day.
Let me wrap up my honorable mentions. We're still on honorable mentions, by the way.
Jesus Christ.
Radiation Sickness by Nuclear Assault. I Want to Rock by Twisted Sister. I had Rocket Queen by Guns N' Roses. I know a lot of people don't consider them a metal band. I think that's a metal song. And pick whatever Metallica song you want and put it on my honorable mentions. They had 4 big albums in the 80s, so I
want to rock. Everybody sing along. It's not metal.
All right, so we're going to our selections. I'm up first. My selection for best heavy metal song of the 80s is Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden. Why I enjoy this song, aside from the fact that it's awesome, I'm a sucker for songs that teach me about American history. Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA taught me everything I needed to know about the Vietnam War. Michael Jackson's Beat It taught me everything about the ongoing problem that inner city gangs were causing by plaguing our streets.
I was just about to say, be careful with what you say after that.
So Run to the Hills is no exception, as it teaches us about the Native American. It teaches us about Native American history. Seeing that this song is about Native Americans, and according to my 23andme.com profile, 25% of me understands the importance of these words. Anyway, my pick, Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden. who, by the way, narrated a Native American history better than my 11th grade history teacher. He was a hell of a junior varsity golf coach, though. Bruce Dickinson's voice, and we talked about this, Bob, before the show. That's Bruce Dickinson, not anybody's old high school football coach named Dick Dickinson. It's Bruce Dickinson. How do you get more metal than that scream? He doesn't have a lot of range and versatility, but that's power in the voice. He sings with undeniable, pure metal power, and I love it. His vocals are impeccable. When anyone does the metal scream, you are essentially mimicking the man who perfected that shriek, and that's Bruce Dickinson. Eddie Munson would agree that this was a very metal pick, I think, because it just falls in line with just pure 80s heavy metal. I'm going to give Iron Maiden the credit for the cerebral aspect of this piece. Anybody can scream about gore or horror or war or whatever. Once again, they are teaching us about history. This song documents the colonization of the Americas, first by the Europeans, then by the Americans, and then the perspective of the Cree Indians and the American cavalrymen. We learned more from them than our teachers. Good metal teaches, is what I say. The stereotype of metal bands being for burnouts, for slackers, for losers, for idiots was rebuked by bands like Iron Maiden. They were adroit, and this song is about resistance and overcoming odds. And what is more metal than that, I asked. The construction of this song is brilliant. First verse, the perspective of the Native Americans. The second verse, perspective of the white man. The third verse is impartial narration. It's just brilliantly accompanied by heavy guitar, the wah-wah pedal, and the solo pulse-pounding bass, the drums sounding like galloping horses. Everyone is on their A game in this song, and that's why I love it so much. What are you guys' thoughts on this song?
I don't have to say anything. I think you just, every real metalhead's like, Jesus Christ. I'm just kidding. I run for your life. The Cowboys and Indians. I thought that was that's different. Most bands at that time were just doing like concert style music videos of just them playing a live performance. I personally think that Trooper was the way to go here. It's more of a metal sounding song. This song is definitely metal, yes, but I think that it just rocks a little bit harder going with Trooper. Just my personal preference. Now, Iron Maiden is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, 80s metal bands in that decade, and they're, crazy big fan base, selling out stadiums. Their lead singer, Bruce Dickinson, just amazing. I heard he was kind of a dick, hence the Dickinson. Name. Yeah. Anyways, I think that they're the most commercial heavy metal band of that decade, man. This song is perfect for that because it's heavy, but it also has that chorus where everybody can sing along. It's heavy in certain spots, but it also has that, radio playability. You know what I mean? It's got a little commercial sound to it, and I think that's why it was so popular. And that's probably why a lot of people, one of their go-tos, and think, metal in the 80s, Run to the Hills. That's one of my favorite ones because you can sing along to it. And I don't feel like necessarily heavy metal is a sound that you should be, or a style of rock and roll that you should be able to sing along with. It doesn't need to be all screaming and Cannibal Corpse. Sorry, Joseph. But you don't have to sing along with it. I think that this Run to the Hills, Run for Your Life, it's a great, that chorus sound where everybody sings along and everybody pumps their fists, and it's very hair metal to me. Not saying that it's bad, because I definitely love Iron Maiden. The Number of the Beast, crazy fucking heavy. Trooper, Aces High, Wasted Years. They have a lot of songs that are on my playlist I absolutely love, but I think that this one just toes that fine line between that heavy metal and that hair metal that we were talking about earlier. So I can see why it's so popular, and I can see why a lot of people that grew up in the 80s, maybe that they're in high school and junior high in the 80s, might go to this song specifically as, oh yeah, it's going to be the best, because I think it was kind of commercial, man. I think it was definitely the MTV's biggest heavy metal song.
This is a great song. It's definitely one of the, I didn't want to put it, I tried not to put our picks or the bands that we're picking in honorable mentions to try, like I've said that before, but I could not mention the Trooper. Like Bob, and I'm sorry, Rand, I know that seems like we're ganging up on you, but like I was listening to the Trooper while Bob was giving it. I have it in my headphones. I was listening. Yeah, so while Bob was giving this, and I'm just like, I'm grooving to it better. It's just, I think it's a better song. I think it's better for this genre, or how I feel about this genre, or how, when I'm picking something like this. Run to the Hills is tremendous. Like you said, that vocal range is insane. It's not featured so much on the Trooper, but it doesn't bother me. I think he still sounds awesome, and I know you mentioned Eddie Munson. Obviously, the gets that. It's a tribute. It's basically it's. I mean, he looks like the Bruce Dickens.
Yeah. I put on my pants one leg at a time.
He looks like him. He really does. And the way he's dressed and his hairstyle in both the Trooper and Run to the Hills videos, that's basically the look that they went through for the Eddie Munson character. I don't know, man. It's a great pick. It's a great song. Obviously, I just think when I think Iron Maiden, my mind runs to the Trooper and that intro, the dun 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 dun. Like I just like, oh man, I fucking lose it. The drumming and the tone is a little bit faster with Run to the Hills, but I love the solo on the Trooper. Like I said, I know it feels like we're probably getting. It's a great pick. It's a great song. It's definitely like up there on the list of great '80s metal songs. I just think Trooper is better than it, and it's a personal thing for me too, just because I like it better.
Randy's taking it very personal.
Yeah, well, no, that's what I was about to say. I hope
I've never taken.
Don't take offense to that. Yeah. Like I just think
he says that, but he just threw his glass of water on the floor right now.
Trooper's just such a great fucking song to me. Like I don't know. It's the first one that I was introduced to, so it has a significance for that to me for that. As far as Iron Maiden,
I don't see "Run to the Hills" being a commercial song. It's a very deep song. It's a very thoughtful song. And I know it's one of their favorites to play. The fact that it does have a sing-songy chorus, I don't think that should be a knock on it. I think that should benefit it because you could actually, throw the horns up, bang your head and sing along to, at least that part. I think it brings the fans.
You could do that at Taylor Swift concert too.
Well, I don't know about that, but you definitely could sing along to that part of the Iron Maiden song. Not a lot of metal bands bring that element. But this song does. I think the video was great. I think they rocked out. I think you can't sleep on the guitar solo. The drums are amazing. Sound like horses galloping. I mean, I love the song. To me, when I think of metal, I think of, so many bands, including the two bands you guys are about to debate as well. But I mean, this song for me just speaks early 80s heavy metal that set the tone. But that's just my opinion.
I agree with that 1,000,000%. They sound like an 80s metal band. Like if anybody's like, what does 80s metal sound like? You'd probably play them Iron Maiden because they have a very specific 80s sound to them.
Let me ask you a question, Ren. When you first heard the song, were you swayed by the intro or were you like, what is this? Because I mean, that it's different,
Yeah, it is different.
The opening.
It's definitely not a metal opening.
Yeah, it's different. You do have to be patient with this song.
Yeah.
And then when it builds up.
All my girls.
The thing about this song, I think the genius about it is that it starts building up. It's like, he goes into this, he shifts narration, and then the chorus is the same for both the Native Americans and the settlers who were running them out. So it's a story that goes back and forth. So you really have to be cerebral about it. And that's why I love it, because I think you have to think about this song, and it's not just, it's you got to actually think about this shit,
It's a great Thanksgiving song is what we're trying to say, folks.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. Let's go on to you, Bob. What do you got for us?
Oh, man. I love Iron Maiden. For anybody who thinks that we don't, me and Joseph, we love Iron Maiden, one of our favorite bands in the 80s. I went in a different direction, and my question to you is, who would win in a wrestling match, Lemmy or God? Question. Lemmy is God.
God.
Lemmy is God, yes.
He's a cop.
He's a cop.
I went with Motorhead, the Ace of Spades that was released in October 1980. How can you go wrong with picking Lemmy? I mean, Lemmy is God. From that opening iconic bass line to that drum build up to that kick-ass metal riff, which is by far my favorite metal riff of the 80s. This from their guitarist in the Ace of Spades. This song is fucking metal, man. Not to mention you have the baddest motherfucker to ever sing metal in Lemmy. I mean, this guy has been one of my favorites since I was a kid. And not only does he growl, not only does he have grit, but you can understand about 95% what he's saying. Not like Cannibal Corpse there, Joseph. This song, to me, is just the epitome of metal. And what's even better about it, it doesn't fall into that hair metal style of 80s rock that was so popular. No one's sporting spandex. No one's got the Aquanet. It's just Lemmy and company looking like the kind of dudes that would be playing metal in like a dive bar with a bunch of bikers drinking beer and listening to it. They're the type of band. When I think of a metal band, that's the type of dudes that I think would be playing in a metal band. And it's not just the music. It's not just the lead singer. The lyrics of the song are cool as fuck too. They mention gambling. They mention the devil. They mention, of course, the Ace of Spades. One of my favorite lines is, "That's the way I like it, baby. I don't want to live forever." I think that's fucking cool. That's definitely metal, man. They're not singing about, running to the hills. They're singing about something fucking cool. They're badass. I think that's what makes them stand out a little bit. And I was just making a joke about running to the hills. I think that they're just a badass band, and they're like the type of dudes that would drink whiskey and smoke cigarettes and don't give a fuck about what anybody thinks about them or their style or their music or anything like that. And that's what makes them metal, at least to me. The guitar solo, besides the guitar riff, which again, I think is fucking fantastic. I love that. What's crazy is too, guys, the opening to the song, it's Lemmy playing the bass, and it freaks me the fuck out because I always thought it was the guitar part, but no, it's Lemmy jamming on the bass to open a fucking metal song. How many metal songs do you know start off with that opening bass line? It's extremely rare, and it's fucking kick ass. And then to follow it up with that riff, it's crazy, dude. Big props to Eddie Clark, who was a guitarist at the time, as well as the drummer Phil Taylor. Do you want to talk about a guy that's trying to keep up with the fucking band? The bass and the guitar, the fucking drummer's hands look like he's on fucking fire. You see him at the end of the video taking a couple of big deep breaths. He's like, holy shit, that guy is drumming in chingas, man. It's crazy, dude. This song, to me, it will always be untouchable. You can't find... I dare you to try to find a metalhead somewhere out there that has a bad thing to say about Lemmy and Motorhead, man. The Ace of Spades is just that song. It's that adrenaline junkie metal song that fires you the fuck up every time you listen to it. I know it does it for me. It's not a 80s sounding metal song, but it is the best metal song of the 80s in my personal opinion. And it's hard to go wrong when you have a lead singer like that and guitar play like that. What do you guys think?
I think that is one of the greatest opening riffs of a song, and that's because it's not being played on a guitar. Like you said, dude, Lemmy's bass intro, his sound, his distorted bass, I love it. Dude, to me, one of the greatest metal bassists ever. And just a tremendous voice. This is one of my favorite songs personally, not just of Motorhead. They ton of great songs. I think this, and yeah, Bob, this is definitely different. I know we mentioned earlier the particular era and the time frame of quote unquote glam metal, hair metal, whatever you want to call it, glam rock to us. This being coming out so early in the 80s, these guys, Motorhead, were not American, and they were doing this shit across the seas, and what we were getting in America was the glam stuff. And I like that these guys did influence some of my favorite bands, influence my pick that I'll talk about later. Phil Taylor's drumming.
Oh, Phil Taylor, yeah.
Some
Phil
of the
Taylor's
best drumming, use of double bass, and he's a huge inspiration to a lot of double bass drummers. A lot of the musicians, the bands that I listen to use that particular style of drumming. It's a great fucking song. I think it kicks off the decade. I don't know. It's hard for me to say how I would have responded to music had I been listening to this, because early 80s. Well, I wasn't born yet, but if I was a teenager or a young adult in the 80s when this stuff was coming out, it's easy for me to say that I don't like the glam stuff because I'm such a fan of what I'm a fan of, and I appreciate the influences like Motorhead to that. But the way I look at it now, like, I wish that the 80s were more... This is what was more the thing in the 80s. This sound, stuff like this, stuff like Iron Maiden, than what's particularly known for, I guess, 80s metal when you search 80s metal and things like that. I think this is a great pick, man. It's hard to argue against it. It's definitely a banger. Oh man, it gets you going. Pump that shit in your car.
Talk about getting to work in 4 minutes, man.
Yeah. I mean, it is speed. It is power. It is, It's a great song. Like I said, it's a little early in the decade, but man, it's definitely a tough one and definitely a memorable one of the decade. Ren?
You know, I didn't know this was an 80s song until you brought it. I always thought this was like from the 70s, and it was like a late 70s, like just banger. But it's a great song. I think Motorhead, like they say, if they moved into the house next to you, your lawn would die. The Ace of Spades, it's a sick song. I prefer Ace of Base. Don't sleep on All That She Wants, but Ace of Spades is good too.
Another baby. She's gone tomorrow.
This is Motorhead's most famous song. It's about gambling. It's about risk. Lemmy recalled writing the song in an interview with a magazine in February of 2011, I should say. Ace of Spades, he says, is unbeatable. Apparently, it's unbeatable, he says. But I never knew it was such a good song. Writing it was just a word exercise on gambling and all the cliches. I'm glad we got famous for that rather than some turkey of a song. But I sang the 8 of Spades for 2 years and nobody noticed that was the name of the song, the 8 of Spades. But you can't understand what he's singing in the song. He's just, Lemmy's voice is, come on, undeniable.
It's pretty iconic, yeah.
It is, yeah. You can't go wrong. He might not, carry a tune, but holy crap, he's metal all the way. This is definitely a pump you up before you work out music. Put on your New Balance, stretch out those hip flexors, man. You're ready to go for a nice long run. When you play this song for a few seconds, you forget how old you are. Your neck quickly reminds you, but for a fleeting second, you're back being young. Bob, you're touting their style, their lifestyle. Sad fact, none of the musicians on this song are alive. It's only been a little over 30 years. Everybody in this band is dead. So, I mean, I don't know. I guess they live metal, I mean, so don't tout. We don't agree with anyway.
That's metal, sir. They didn't stop so they could do fucking Pilates and shit and, clean themselves up and hard until the end.
But if they did, they'd still be with us. Anyway, this is the ultimate bar fight song. It's so aggressive. It sucks that it's so short, though. It doesn't give anybody the opportunity to properly get stabbed. Anyway, I remember first hearing this song. I was watching this compilation for a metal cassette on those 1-800 whatever dial metal, and we'll send you this cassette. I remember there was a Melting Skull and they were playing the Ace of Spades, and I was like, what the hell is this? This was before the internet, this was before anything, so I had to wait to find out who sang this song or who played this music. And I mean, the Ace of Spades, it's been a classic ever since. Lemmy, what an original voice. Bob, you're a carton of cigarettes and a bottle of whiskey away from achieving that voice, so I would say be careful. Anyway, he's our Lemmy, but we're not going to tell you where his mole is located. Anyway, on a scale,
he has a certain mole. If I could just look at it. Was that Porky's?
Porky's, yeah.
On a scale of 1 to 11, how great is that band name? Motorhead with the umlauts. What a great fucking metal band name. Probably the best name. What I hate about this song, it reminds me of Triple H. Other than that, I mean, it's hard to. But after, one last Lemmy quote. After playing this for years, Lemmy admitted that he was sick of this song. He said that he kept it in the set list because if I went to go see a Little Richard concert, I expect to hear Long Tall Sally. So the question is, and you can answer this on the rebuttal. But when does a band become sick of playing the song, guys? When the song becomes bigger than the band. So my point is that when you select an all-era song, the band has to have an opulent set list. I think Motorhead is just, we know that they have other songs, but does the Ace of Spades overshadow Motorhead's popularity? What do you guys think?
No, I think it like shot them in popularity, if anything. You know what I mean? The great thing about it is that it may be a song that they hate to play because they played it so many goddamn times, probably request so many times, but it's not commercial, and that's what I love about it. They didn't have to go the 80s route, a popular route, in order for their song to become popular. They were doing their own fucking thing, and then that song just skyrocketed and went nuts with fans. So that's what I can appreciate about it.
Joseph, you're final. You're the last one up. What do you got?
So for this topic, I chose a song by one of my favorite bands. Surprise, surprise. I chose Metallica's Whiplash. First single from the band's debut album, Kill 'Em All, released in 1983. 83 was mostly dominated by pop music, lots of Michael Jackson, The Police, Hall & Oates. Most of what was getting the attention as far as, metal is concerned at the time was what we deem, or what I deem, hair metal stuff. The LA scene, as it's been described, was, what it was all about. This song is so far from it, and that's what I love. It's what I believe the real metal of the 80s sound is. The thrash sound, the speed metal. We've talked about metal a lot, the term metal, and how it's, how liberal it's used throughout this decade. If you search the term 80s metal on Google, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube, you name it, whatever, you're going to get a list of stuff that's mostly like Motley Crue, Def Leppard, Whitesnake Poison, and whatnot. Striper, things like that. And that's not what, like how we've already said, that's not what metal is to me. I said those are stadium rock. It's glam rock. Its intention is written in the lyrics, and that's cool, man. That's what they wanted to do. When I think of 80s metal, I think of Slayer, Metallica, Judas Priest, Motorhead, Iron Maiden, the bands that we've already mentioned. That's 80s metal. Everything about this song is fucking metal to me. The tempo, the fast guitar, speed drums. This is thrash metal through and through. It gets me super pumped. Honestly, look at the lyrics, and that's what I feel about this song. I mean, the lyrics are basically how describe the feeling I get, the feeling of what I believe anybody who enjoys this type of genre or who seeks out this type of 80s metal, it's how it makes them feel. Some quick quotes, late at night, all systems go, you've come to see the show. There's a feeling deep inside that drives you fucking mad. Adrenaline starts to flow, you're thrashing all around. That's how you feel, man. That's how this song makes me fucking feel. Like, I wish that you all were listening to it in your headphones right now while I'm describing this, because that's what I was doing for you.
To listen to you to respond.
Well, I was doing that for you. I listened to each song while you were giving it to help me see what you see.
Anyway, he jumped on his bed and was screaming, "Run to the hills!" And his phone is.
He jumped over his pillows. Yeah, we saw it.
I really don't know how else to say it, man. This song speaks for itself. When I think of metal in the 80s, this is a song that I think of, this style, this Bay Area thrash sound. And I know we mentioned earlier the whole Exodus thing, but you know, Motorhead was not an American band, but man, that English UK metal sound I think was awesome as well. I think it's in that it came out early enough to inspire bands like Metallica, the thrash scene, I believe, and that's why I'm so appreciative of it. But this song is really awesome to me. This is what I think about, like I said, when I think 80s metal. It's an influential song and style, the way it's played, to a lot of the great music that I listen to today. And it's so fucking good that even Motorhead themselves did a cover of it and won a Grammy. Isn't that fucking insane?
Yep.
And I know that like Metallica was looked up to Motorhead and were very influenced by them. A crazy thing to them to see Motorhead do a cover of their song and have it recognized. Metallica would have never won a Grammy back in the days, but at least the song itself got some recognition from another great 80s metal band. That only heightens it just makes it 10 times better, guys.
Metallica did get a Grammy, and Lars had that great line where, because the year before they lost to Jethro Tull, and he's like, "Thank God Jethro Tull didn't release an album this year, because they were like robbed." I don't think we really understood what metal was back in the 80s, and that's why this conversation and this topic is so important. We'll never stop, we'll never quit, because we're Metallica. Hell yes. What a great line. This is like
11 albums later.
Yeah, and they were right. They were absolutely right. This is like the thrash Sgt. Pepper's. I mean, there was a song singing about a band, and they were singing about themselves. Metallica in their infancy, first single from their debut album. Do you guys remember that clip where Metallica is just coming out? Their album is about a month away. They're performing in a club in front of about 100 people, and James Hetfield holds up the album. He says, "This is our record. It's coming out next month." And I mean, wow.
It's called Kill 'Em All.
I mean,
we're happy to kill all you tonight.
40 years later, right? This is when James Hetfield looked like one of the Children of the Corn, and now he looks like the Cowardly Lion. Anyway, little trivia. Kurt Cobain's favorite Metallica song is this, Whiplash. This is a group of thrash metal young guys showing off what they can do. It's prefacing what's to come. It's very raw. It's good, but it's very raw, right? It's weird, but it's really like a love letter to true metal fans. People in LA, Joseph, and you mentioned this, were more into the glam bands, the poppy sound. And when Metallica hit San Francisco, they found an appreciation there. That's where thrash really became alive for them.
It's the birthplace.
Yeah, absolutely. In my bone of contention, this song, and you mentioned this, covered a number of times, but most notably by Motorhead, whose version you said won a Grammy. Controversial take. I like Motorhead's cover better than Metallica's original. I will say that. Once Lemmy covers your song, it's not your song anymore. It's Lemmy's song. But seriously, though, I mean, kudos to Metallica. It's not often one of your heroes comes back to cover one of your songs. It's such a rarity. This song seemed tailor-made for Motorhead, but Metallica's releases is also solid. Let me ask you this, Joseph. Most casual fans of Metallica, the Kill 'Em All album, which is the song that's most played or most noted? Let's start there. We got some microphone feedback when we were.
It's hit the lights.
I was gonna say Four Horsemen.
What about Seek and Destroy?
Maybe.
Well,
to me, I think that's the most popular.
You think so? I mean that as a serious question. Like I
think "Hits the Lights" is their biggest song off of that album.
I think
it's
not my favorite, but I think it's their biggest song.
I think the reason I said because Horseman I've heard used in more movies and things like that than any of the other songs off of this album.
I always thought it was Seek and Destroy because I've heard it in so many movies.
Really?
Entrance.
Well, yeah,
music.
I mean, you hear that they could both. I'd say, yeah.
I'm not saying
you can go either way with them.
And I'm not saying your choice is wrong because we had four Metallica albums in the 80s that you could have chosen a song from.
Exactly.
And so it was Whiplash, which is a great song. It's just different. It's not as, I could say, popular as some of the other Metallica songs. I mean, Whiplash is a great metal song, and maybe this is an unfair assessment. And I know mainstream isn't everything, but the notoriety of this song is buried under so many metal hits off Metallica's first four albums, all released in the 80s, that it's interesting that this is a song that would stand out on your selection because you could have had like 30 other songs to choose from, but this is the one you went with.
I was gonna double up on that. I think that you made a mistake by choosing Metallica, not because you chose Metallica, but because you chose Metallica, which is probably the biggest 80s metal band and probably the biggest thrash metal and rock band of all time. It's really difficult to pick one metal song that they did in the 80s and call it their best. It's like saying what is their best song of all time. It's a difficult decision to make, just by Kill 'Em All alone. I mean, you could have gone with Seek and Destroy, Metal Militia, which I would have chosen, Hit the Lights, Four Horsemen, and Ride the Lightning. Could have gone with From Whom the Bell Tolls, Creeping Death, Call of Cthulhu, and Just for All, Blackened, or One, Master of Puppets, Battery, Master of Puppets, Disposable Heroes. There's just so many fucking great hits that they released in the 80s, and if you had picked any one of those songs, I would have been like, hey man, that's a great pick, because it's Metallica and they're the biggest metal band I think of the 80s and probably of all time. That being said, I think that's the only thing that's the great debate. Well, what's the best Metallica song? Which one really encompasses metal? Which one screams metal? Which one, if you had to play one Metallica song that's like, hey, this is metal right here? I mean, would it be Whiplash? Would it be, Hit the Lights? Would it be Battery? Would it be Blackened? I mean, there's just so many choices. So I think that just mentioning them, I think we had to talk about them, and we had to talk about them extensively because they had so many big hits and big albums and they were definitely one of those bands that just stood out tremendously in the 80s, especially since they didn't sound like 80s hair metal. They were thrash metal. They put that into the forefront, and they made it to where like people were like, no, I'm not listening to Winger, I'm fucking listening to Metallica, you know what I mean, that type of thing. So I think that this is a great pick. Just picking Metallica is a great pick. If none of us had, it would have been a real big shame. So if it was me personally, I would have gone Metal Militia, but then we're just going with personal taste, right? Anybody, I mean, I'm sure like we're going to get 100 different takes from our fans about which Metallica song you should have chosen, but just choosing Metallica, I think that's the right way to go, man. I think they're the biggest shit.
We did a popular episode of which best Metallica song. Joseph, remind me, what song did you go with again? Do you remember?
For Whom the Bell Tolls.
For Whom the Bell Tolls. So,
yeah.
But I'm going to defend Joseph on this one. See, I'm not a Bruce Dickinson like you guys are with my this song. I understand why you picked this, and yeah, we could have the debate. Hey, you know what? There are 40 other Metallica songs, but this is thrash metal to its core, and it's very raw, and it's very fast, and it's very just 80s intro. I don't want to say hairband, but heavy metal music. So I get why you chose it, because From Whom the Bell Tolls is very popular, and it's not as fast and loud as the very raw Whiplash song. So I get why you chose this, because it is thrash metal. It is Metallica. It is their first song off their first album. So I get why you chose it. My point is, there's so many to choose from that it's very tough to pick a Metallica song that represents the best 80s metal song.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's a good choice. Anyway, guys, final questions. Last thoughts about 80s I want to say hair metal. Last thoughts about 80s metal, guys.
It's what I believe is the start of real metal music, real heavy metal in general. That's how I feel. I think this is where we got our start. This is where everything that I listen to today, everything, I believe it can all be traced back to this. And, this got its start from, great stuff from the 70s. So it's all a fucking metal tree, man. It's all a family tree of bands that, one here, one connection there that breaks off that and this and that. But I think 80s metal is definitely, the spark of everything after that.
You're so poetic. Yeah, I agree 100%, dude. I think this is a great topic to talk about 80s metal. There's just so many different bands, a variety of bands, and so many sounds that, really inspired a lot of the later metal bands in the late 80s, early 90s. And then, of course, new metal, Joseph's favorite from the late 90s, early 2000s. So I'm a big fan of this decade. I'm a big fan of all of our picks and all of the bands that we mentioned. I'm sure one of these days we're going to do best 80s rock song, and we're going to mention a lot of like the Motley Crue.
Completely different thing.
We already did best 80s rock song.
We did?
Yeah. Yeah, we did it already.
What was our picks?
Fucking 90 episodes later, bro. It's harder.
Two of us picked Guns N' Roses, and I forgot who.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So I won that one, by the way. I forget it.
You won. You can't even remember it.
I don't even know the fucking pick. No, but what I mean is like
90 episodes.
90 episodes. It's a great decade for music, and I'm glad we got to talk about metal.
It's 11 albums in Metallica years.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, dude, great show, great pick, great topic. I can't wait till we talk about, 70s metal, which is my favorite decade of rock music, and then 90s, and of course new metal, which I'm sure Randy's gonna love.
I'm not a fan of new metal. I will say I am a fan of 80s metal. You know
what new metal is?
I do.
No, you don't. New metal is what the writers and TV stations called a particular sound of just metal in the early 2000s. They gave it the name. They didn't call themselves new metal. They didn't call them. It's just music, and I fucking hate that people call it new metal.
We're gonna have to talk about it someday.
New metal, and not NEWNU.
We do encourage everybody to go back and check out our best Metallica episode. Check out our best 80s rock episode that is available.
Rock as well, yeah.
90s, all of our rock episodes, and we'll be breaking down heavy metal decades in the near future as well. But the 80s was an important part of it because it gave it an aesthetic. It gave it, licensing on television. We got to see our heroes, even though it was late nights on Saturdays. It gave metal a face, it gave them a voice, and it gave them a prominence in mainstream. And that's why I think 80s metal, you might argue, is it the best sounding? That's up for debate, but I don't think you could debate that it's the most important decade for metal. That's just my opinion. Well, it's a fact. Anyway, okay, guys. We got
it's lively and it's a fucking fact.
we got 1 minute each. Anything you guys watch or want to share with the audience?
It's a Mario. I saw Super Mario Bros. This weekend at the movie theater, man. It was awesome. It was funny. It was nostalgic. If you get a chance, if you have kids especially, go check it out. Even if you don't, leave the kids at home and go see it. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Joseph, anything?
I saw the second murder mystery movie that Sandler and Aniston do together. It was okay. I thought the first one was better. If you got Netflix, you're looking for something to laugh at, you're definitely going to get some laughs out of that. Adam Sandler, I mean, we're all fans of him anyway. So I definitely enjoyed it. I just think the first one's better. I don't know if you're not familiar with it. It's the murder mystery. There's part 1 and part 2. They're on Netflix. Go check them out.
I saw Air, about the best basketball player that ever lived.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's a great movie, great pacing. Matt Damon kicked ass in it. I loved it. I encourage everybody to check it out. And so we're going to be a little spotty the next couple episodes because we have a couple of out of town things. Joseph, we're not recording next week because you're going to a Coldplay concert, right?
No, not a Coldplay concert.
You said Coldplay.
Who are you going to see?
I'm going to go see Cold.
Cold, okay.
Cold, okay.
Coldplay, get the fuck out of here.
I will try to fix you, Joseph. It's okay.
You know what? Speaking of, like,
it's such a sexy song, Joseph. I don't give a fuck what you say.
So I'm going to my first. Yellow's a great fucking song.
Yeah.
I'm going to my first show. The last time I was recently going through my archive, whatever, on Instagram, my personal account, and I had some stuff from September of 2019. It was Cold show. That was the last show that
I
went
went
to.
with you on that one.
You went to that one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you were there.
I
Yeah.
was
So
there.
that was our last show. That was my last show. I'm sure your last show, or I'm not
No,
sure.
I went to Smashing Pumpkins.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was my last show, September of 2019, and my first show since then is going to be them again. That's pretty fucking crazy.
Excellent.
I'm just like excited to go see live music. And I know we've said this before, like kind of just feeling like you can go out and do things again, finally.
Yeah, no, give us a full report when you get back. That's our show, everyone. Listeners, we'd love to hear from you. Hit us up and let us know what your favorite 80s metal song is. Most importantly, let us know what you think about the show. You may reach us at formidableopponents@gmail.com. You can follow us on all forms of social media by searching for Formidable Opponents. We want to thank Creative Little Pill for her great artwork. Please follow her on Instagram at Creative Little Pill. Please rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. And join us next episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks. We're going to call a truce, and we're going to be discussing our best Chris Farley memories. So for Bob and Joseph, it's going to be good. And I can't wait to talk about it. Hopefully we'll hold back some tears because Chris Farley meant a lot to us. So for Bob and Joseph, this is Randall. We'll see you all next week.
See you in hell, my friends.
You remember that Lemmy appearance in Airheads where he's like, I was the editor of the school magazine. I barely understood what he said. I had to put the subtitles on.
See y'all next time.